It took me 5 years and dozens of failures to learn how to code. But what I learned along the way, I've turned into a framework, and I think this can help you learn how to code, and it can help expedite your journey. Like most people, I didn't know what I was doing when I was starting out. I didn't even know anyone that knew how to code or that worked in software or anything like that. I had to pick everything up from absolute zero. And because of that, I made a lot of mistakes. I did not have the most efficient route into software, but these mistakes really taught me a lot of lessons. And working with other new students learning how to code for the first time, I've really gotten to solidify these and turn them into principles. Everyone is different, but this is what worked for me, and this is what I teach, and this is what I suggest for anyone else that's starting and learning how to code for the first time. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the process, the framework that worked for me for learning how to code. I mean, I didn't know this from the outset whatsoever, but I've kind of hobbled it together over time based off of my experience, my mistakes, and I've seen it work, and I see this framework kind of in almost every single developer's journey that I talk to. And so from the top down, the first thing I want to talk about here is what I refer to as the North Star. This is the highest level purpose and the reason that you want to learn how to code. And so the North Star will be different for everyone, but I think it's really the most important thing, because becoming a developer is a very long journey. It takes, for many people, multiple years. And so you need to have a consistent, long-term, meaningful, big goal or reason behind why you're doing it. For me, for example, the reason that I wanted to learn how to code was, I guess at the highest level was really Bitcoin. For me, Bitcoin represented this new wave of technology that I thought was the most important technology in the world. Something that meant a lot to me, I thought would make the world a better place, and that I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to benefit from it. So that really there was a lot wrapped up in here, not just Bitcoin in itself, but it was something bigger. It was money, it was meaning, and it was mission. And so this might be a number of different things for you, but I mean, it really needs to be high level and persistent, something that keeps you motivated and, I mean, just keeps your eye on the North Star. Okay, and the next thing I will, just to stick with the theme here, I'm going to refer to it as the moon. That's kind of the moon there. But really what this is in MVP. And if you don't know what MVP stands for, that means a minimum viable product. It's a project that you are going to use as a goal for your coding journey, at least the beginning part of your coding journey. And so for this project, you want it to be a balance of something that is ambitious, but also realistic. And so you want it to be ambitious because you want it to be something that you really have to shoot for. It's not just a to-do list app, but something that you want to bring into the world that you think is cool. But then also you need to make it realistic. It can't be like, I'm going to reinvent the internet, or I'm going to create the first quantum computer. I mean, those are great ambitious goals, and really you can do that, go out and do it. But it needs to be something that's grounded, something that you could actually do as one person, or at least take a chunk of. So a balance of realism and ambition. Okay, so the other thing that I think you want for this MVP is it needs to be something that's important or meaningful to you. Something like a gift. That's my attempt at drawing a gift, but it needs to be a gift to the world or a gift to yourself, right? Something that really drives you. And I'll have a story about this in a minute. And over time, this may look different than how you start at the outset. You might start with this big MVP from the outset, but maybe you only ever end up, not only, but maybe eventually your goal becomes that you complete this one important component of the MVP, and then you can kind of build it along the rest of the way like that. And the final reason that I think that this is a very important thing to do is to have a project that is a goal for yourself, is to use it as a measuring stick. And so this will be a measuring stick in the sense that you'll kind of know that you have the skills that you've wanted for the outset, right? The skills to get to this North Star. You'll sort of know that you have that skill set once you can build, or at least start to build, the important components of this MVP, of this project, right? So it is a measuring stick for your progress. It is a gift to yourself and the world, something that excites you. And it's a balance of realism and ambition. And I think that's a pretty good framework for this. But of course, for you to do any of this, you actually need to know how to code. And so that's where the bottom of this comes into play. And this is really the process. And I think of the process sort of like a pyramid. So the pyramid, this is basically, this represents all of the skills and the knowledge and the experience that you need to have to build the project that you want to build, and then eventually get to that overall goal or North Star that you want to get to. All of it is built on top of the pyramid of the process. And so this process has multiple layers to it. And really it's also structured, right? It's a structured approach. So maybe when you're starting out, you'll learn the very basics of how to code, like HTML and CSS. And maybe from there, you'll get to the next level and start making interactive web pages and front ends. And then maybe from there, you'll move on and start to learn about how to build backends and databases and APIs. Right, and so there will be these set of skills, this set of knowledge and experience that you'll need. And so where are you going to find this? So some popular places are going to be, well, obviously people go to university for this, or maybe they'll go to a coding boot camp. But something easy that you can start with is, for example, freecodecamp.com. They will give you a curriculum. Or Code Academy, they'll give you curriculum. Or of course, I have my own platform, I have my own solution, PlebDevs, which we have our own dev journey. You can go to PlebDevs.com and click Learn How to Code, and you can get started with a structured dev journey, just like that. So these are kind of three options where you might get a curriculum from that you'll follow to traverse this pyramid. Right, so you might check out Free Code Camp, Code Academy, or PlebDevs.com. And so when I started learning how to code, the process, this is what was the hardest for me. And something that bothered me about the beginner courses that I took for learning a basic programming language like Python is that, and I didn't know this at the time I just thought I was dumb, because I would always drop or fail or get stuck on these courses. But I find that the traditional approach is very labor intensive. It's very manual. So the traditional approach, they'll have you go through each row of these skills, learning every single detail, every single individual component of it one by one. And then you'll go through this, and then you'll skip and you'll go through the next one. And so this is a very manual process. And so something that I really like to emphasize is the 80-20 rule. And this is the idea that 20% of what there is to learn, you will be using 80% of the time. And I find that true. So that's the 80-20 rule. But then also taking a project-based approach to learning, right? So we're shooting for a big overall project that might take a year to build the skills to do. But instead of walking through every crevice of this pyramid, the PlebDevs approach, how I like to do this, is going project by project. So we'll do a project at this level, kind of touching on each one of these little things. And then we'll jump to a project at this level. Boom, boom. And then we'll go to a project at this level. And what we're going to do with these is we are going to back them up to something called GitHub. And so GitHub is the platform that every single developer uses. It's where you will show off, back up, and collaborate with everything to do with software and with code. And what's great about it is that you can go through and build these projects and save them, back them up to GitHub, and have them live on as examples for you forever. So I don't need to remember every bit of the coding languages that I use. I have projects for every little thing I might need to do. I have examples of that. And so project-based approach, and then backing it up to GitHub. And so let's put a cloud there, because it's basically a cloud backup. And so another really cool thing about GitHub is that GitHub has something called a contribution chart, and the idea of contributions. And so what these are individual bits of code or work that you are doing on software, and they're publicly viewable in this beautiful chart. And so I think this is amazing, and it's been an important part of my journey. For one, because it's a cool game to play, to try and fill up all the squares and push code as many days as you can. So it's a good motivator. But then also, it is your proof of work. It's where you can show off that you are consistently writing and pushing code. And so that is a really cool aspect of GitHub that I think you should leverage and take advantage of. Okay, so now you have most of the components of the process here, right? First of all, there is a curriculum or a structured learning path that you're able to follow to figure out what it is you need to learn and some kind of order to do it. So a curriculum, a kind of structured learning path. You have like a daily goal or a daily motivator in the form of a contribution chart, trying to fill up those squares, put green in those squares, and push code, push contributions every day, even if they're small. And then you're backing up your progress, your projects along the way onto GitHub, so they live on as examples. And so what you're doing here through this process, yes, there's a lot to learn. It's a big pyramid to climb, but the whole way through this process, you're building up proof of work, you're building up momentum, you're building up a series of examples, but also these examples might get you hired one day, right? These examples represent experience and at the same time, your learning trajectory. So all of this together is a process where you can just go through, even if you have to do it multiple times. You go through the steps, you make a project, you go to the next level, you do it again, you go to the next level, and then maybe you work your way back down. You learn a little bit more along the way, or you get new additional projects that demonstrate these things along the way. New project, right? And so that is the process that you can follow. And that process, at a certain point when you are going through this MVP that we started with, that we kind of messed up here, you will start to figure out as you go through this process how you are going to be able to build this MVP. Because at the start, you may know what you want to build, but you're not going to know exactly how you're going to do it. And this is going to make more and more sense as you walk the journey. You're going to figure out you're going to add layers and layers of context and understanding onto this idea that you have until eventually it just glows. You know exactly how you're going to be able to do it. Once again, even if it is only a small starting component of it, right? Because it's MVP, which stands for minimum viable product. So we're just shooting for something that's a gift, something, it's a measuring stick. ambitious, but also realistic, right? And then from there, once you can build that MVP, you basically have the skills that you need to be able to reach that end goal that you want to get to. At least that's how it's been for me. And so I guess a bit more context for how all of this played out for me, how all of this looked for me. So I mentioned that like my North Star, my overall goal was kind of around Bitcoin, but it was also just meaning and mission and making basic money, because I was just a delivery driver before I knew how to code or I was involved in Bitcoin at all. And so Bitcoin kind of started me down this whole journey of thinking about software for the first time, where I hadn't considered it before, or even considered that I was smart enough or that I was the kind of person that could learn how to code. But it was the excitement that Bitcoin represented to me that sort of motivated me to figure out, is there some way I can learn how to code and be a part of the action? And so for me, I wanted to think of a project that would help me reach my mission of being a software developer in Bitcoin, but would solve a problem that I cared about, would be a gift to myself or a gift to the world. And it was something ambitious, it was something also somewhat realistic, and it was definitely a measuring stick. This project was something called FB Explorer, which stands for Facebook Explorer. And so this is the final name it ended up with, but it started as just this dumb idea that I had in the middle of the night of like, what if I could track all of my data from all my different social media profiles and put it all into one place, and it'd be this sort of like data-rich timeline or thing that you could use to have intelligence on yourself or train AIs on. And so I wrote down just a few random name ideas on a sticky note, and I put it on my dresser. And this was about 8 or 9 years ago, and it's still on my dresser today. I have this little video of it. And so this was an idea that was just in the back of my head. It was early, it was a cool idea, and it was very big, it was very ambitious. But the component of what I ended up here, of that ambitious idea of combining all of your social media profiles together, I started with just FB Explorer. And this was a way to just download and explore and take control of all of your Facebook data and do it through UI. It took me many steps into this journey before I could even start to figure out how I would build something like this, or if it was even possible. And then from there, it took me multiple tries. Actually, quite literally, it took me 13 tries, just starting over again to get this right. But I had this, it was such a goal. I have to be able to build this. It's this basic important thing of this idea that I care about. And eventually FB Explorer actually became a newer version. I built it successfully. I reached this goal, which was amazing. And I actually built an updated version of it, which is called Reclaim. And Reclaim included Facebook, and it had Twitter data as well. So I built on the idea. I added Twitter to it as well. I made it cleaner, I made it more efficient, and that was cool. And from here, I was able to reach up into my North Star. And really, I decided actually at this point that this is not a thing I want to work on anymore. What it takes to solve this, I don't want to build. But I had no hard feelings. It was such an enriching experience to bring this to life, to iterate on it, to get real users, and then to then be able to move on to different things, and really things that are more specific to Bitcoin, right? Because this idea was not super specific to Bitcoin, but it was something that motivated me. That's why I stuck with it, right? And then for me, the process is what took years and years. I spent years in this zone in the process and figuring this out, which is why I think that my framework here is so valuable for you. But just these steps right here of like basic coding, and then, you know, maybe intermediate coding, and then we'll say maybe semi-advanced coding. These three steps, especially this first step right here, took me 2 years, 2 or 3 years, right? It was a really long grind, but it didn't have to be that way. What was missing was just the full process backing up my projects like I was talking about, using the GitHub chart as motivation, following a good structured learning path, and then all the way just building projects. So this is what I've learned. This is what I've taken away. You need to have the meaning to overall drive you through the full journey. You need to have a project to shoot after, and you need to have a process to learn and to gain experience. Once again, this is just my framing. This is my approach that I found to work for me and for other students. But if this sounds interesting to you, if this is compelling, then please check out plebdevs.com and click on that Learn to Code button. And that will drop you right into the free starter course, which will get you set up with a code editor, teach you some basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and just get you on that dev journey. I want to help you with your dev journey. This is why I'm building PlebDevs. So please tell me what you want, tell me what you need, and let me know what you think about the videos and about the platform I put together. So thank you. I'll see you next time.